This is a special presentation for Night Ride FM.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dennis G, and I would like to welcome everyone here to nightride.fm. We have a very special guest here with us tonight. We have PYLOT in the house. And how you doing, PYLOT?
Hello, yeah, I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. We got the sound check going, and I do have a tasty beverage here, and I opted for some seltzer water just because I want to keep it clean for tonight, and
nice. Stay hydrated.
It's got to stay hydrated. Absolutely. It's wet outside though. It's been doing nothing but raining today. It's kind of nasty.
Weather here is always terrible as well. It rains all the time.
Yeah, that's what I hear, But I mean, in a dystopia, what do you expect?
Yeah, well, it comes as part of the package, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Well, this is great. I'm really glad to have you on as a guest. And yeah, let's go ahead and talk about some synthwave. So you've been making music for a while. I'm sure you are a very seasoned artist, as I think anybody can tell by listening to your music. It's phenomenally good.
Thank you.
How long have you been doing music?
I've been producing probably for about 11 years. Yeah, I mean, it's taken me a long time to sort of develop the skills, but up until that point, I was always, in bands as a practicing musician, playing drums, bass, guitar, singing, just sort of trying to learn as many things as I could, really. And then as soon as I sort of got introduced to the world of producing, it kind of opened my eyes to the possibilities of, being able to just write and record fully fledged songs on my own. That was great. So I've just been doing that for, say, the last 11 years, yeah.
I'm guessing that you play most of the instruments on your albums and your EPs, right?
Yeah, so everything on every track that I've ever released is all me.
Oh, wow. That's really good. I know a lot of producers, they bring on some collaborators and stuff like that, but just having the talent, the raw talent to be able to go and just play all of the instruments. Now, I'm going to totally jump ahead here because honestly, I'm just really excited to talk with you, and I just been blown away by your stuff. So I'm going to jump all over the place, but that's, let's see if we can kind of roll with the punches here.
Let's do it.
The drums, are they live? Are they programmed? Is it a mix?
So it's a mix. My studio space is quite small at the moment, so I've not got the space to actually be able to record, a live kit or even have like a digital kit. So I've had to sort of get very good at like finger drumming.
Okay.
So like either using a MIDI controller or something to that nature. So that's sort of a skill I've had to develop over the years because I'm constantly moving about. I'm constantly moving my studio with me, and trying to fit it into all sorts of like stupid size spaces. Yeah, so I've had to sort of shrink my studio into a really tiny form factor. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to do the drums live, but on an actual kit. But for the most part now, I'm either finger drumming or like I'm programming it. It's usually a mix of the two.
Well, the funny thing is now, really, the whole trend with all this studio type of stuff is you're really kind of shrinking things down, and your studio goes wherever you go. And I know that I have kind of a small studio, but it's like literally a microphone, a laptop, and I can just kind of pack it up and take it, if I'm going to an event or something like that, it's all there. But finger drumming, I mean, that's got to be a pretty good skill. I mean,
yeah, I mean, yeah, I was fortunate because I had like a background in drumming for many years. So, once you understand the patterns and stuff, you kind of have good coordination anyway, if you've learned to play drums. So it's not that hard to transfer it over. But I guess playing in time, using individual fingers for drums instead of, 2 hands and 2 feet, it does take a bit of getting used to, yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of a change of style, but definitely
Mm.
takes talent, and it's just phenomenal. Like some of the drum kicks and some of the fills that you do, even though some of it might be programmed. I mean, it just has an element to me that it just feels really organic and live. You know?
Yeah, that's a good compliment because that's something like I really strive to achieve, especially because a lot of like electronic music nowadays is it's very sort of it's snapped to the grid. It
Right.
doesn't really have any swing or any groove. There's no sort of it just feels very rigid. So I like to try and sort of create patterns or fills that kind of deviate from that a little bit. Just to sort of create interest in the music, maybe, and just a bit of differentiation, I guess, from what the sort of norm has become in most electronic music.
Yeah, well, your music, it's I would say it's kind of a blend. And in fact, I think the first time I reached out to you was to put one of your songs on my other show, Synthwave on the Fringes, because I always look for that synthwave sound, but just a little bit out of the box where you're doing so much more and just different than your classical synthwave producer. You're doing, your live guitars. I know a lot of synthwave songs have live guitars and everything like that, but just the way that you're
Mm,
doing it, you're approaching it more from like a live band type of angle, and
mm.
it sounds just so good that I was just really impressed when I first heard. I'm like, "Oh, I got to get this on my show." I was like so excited that
Thank
you
you.
said yes, and it was amazing. But yeah, so you've been in doing music with bands for you said, I guess, around 11 years and producing music. Did you always start off with kind of like that synth wavy type of sound, or is it something that kind of evolved in time?
Yeah, well, like when I was younger, like when I was sort of a teenager growing up, I used to be really into like progressive metal and progressive rock. So I really kind of loved all these big like musical sort of 20-minute long songs, whether it be time signature changes like every 2 minutes and key changes. And the sort of as I grew up, maybe my taste matured a little bit, and I got into a lot of kind of disco house, funk, a lot of 80s like classic rock records. Yeah, and I think kind of just by like being involved heavily in the industry for so long, you sort of get introduced to other artists, and you sort of vibe off of each other, and your sort of tastes just develop in that way. So the fact that I'm writing synthwave now, it does surprise me when I think about my tastes growing up, but it doesn't surprise me at the same time because it sort of has a lot of the elements that I've always loved about music, like progressive metal and all those other genres, where the chords and the musicality and stuff, it's just very melodic music, and there's lots of like dynamic changes and key changes and stuff like that, and I'm all for all that.
It's definitely showing in your songs, and I think that's the thing. I think that's the defining thing in your music, that you pull those influences from your past and you kind of incorporate that into a synthwave sound, but it's just kind of right out there. It's very progressive. I know another producer by the name of Casper. He kind of does a lot of the same things with. He actually does some covers of some like
Right.
death metal, like progressive death metal bands, which is just
Oh, I see.
incredible. But yeah, I mean, I think your sound is very progressive, and I can't get enough of the new EP. It's
Thank
really
you.
good.
I'm really glad you like it, man. I was super nervous about releasing it, but the reception as a whole seems to be really good. So I'm super happy that people enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah, and just the first 2 singles were just phenomenal, and just recently, after discovering the music, I realized that you have a whole lot of stuff going on with the story, the world building, and
Mm.
honestly, I don't know what's impressing me more at this point, the world building or the music, because some artists are like, okay, well, I'm gonna write a little story and I'm just gonna put a little liner note like, hey, I'm a guy in a
Mm.
dystopian universe and cool. Like you're writing novels almost, not
Yeah.
novels, but like almost like a graphic comic book or something like that that
Mm.
users and listeners can just follow along, which I find amazing.
Yeah, well, for me, like when I started this project, I've been involved in a lot of different things in the past. Writing music for other people, writing and releasing my own music. But I'd always really enjoyed, graphic novels. I'd always sort of enjoyed listening to soundtracks and music to moving picture and stuff like that. It was just one of those things where it just felt like the natural thing for me to do, to sort of create something where I wasn't just writing music anymore, but I was sort of building something behind it.
Yeah.
It just felt like the right thing to do, really, to sort of start this world building journey and sort of creating a character and sort of writing a story. Don't get me wrong, I mean, it's a lot of work, but
Sure. I bet it
yeah,
is.
I mean, I think it pays off because, like, I'm just super proud of what I've been able to create, even though, like, I have sort of plans to really kind of push it and to do other cool stuff. I'm kind of happy with it where it's at the minute and the direction it's going in.
Yeah, it's really amazing to read. In fact, I spent the entire trip on my way to work. I'm the type of guy who I have a hard time like sitting down and just reading stuff, but throughout the week I was actually listening to your stuff and I was kind of playing the song, I was reading the story, kind of getting immersed in the world. And then I'm like, "Oh my God,
Right.
I have this interview that I got to do tonight." I've only been like halfway through the story. Like I gotta find out
Yeah.
what's going on, especially with the new EP because the characters and the storyline is really original with the wedding ring. And you carry a lot of threads through the entire story with each chapter, and then some chapters break out into its own. I guess you would say, like when the EP comes out, and you have kind of a larger story arc, and then
Mm.
kind of build a bigger moment. And I just
Yeah.
I find that fascinating.
Yeah, I think like with when I first started the project, the idea was just to keep it very simple and ambiguous and just to kind of create a sense of like, there being a world and a character in it, but never really to go as in depth as I have been. But I think that's just like over time, maybe just me becoming more invested in the idea myself and actually enjoying writing the music, enjoying getting the artwork done, collaborating on that. And it just got to a point where I found myself naturally wanting to just write more and develop the characters. And PYLOT has been a thing since like 2015. And, it's got
Wow.
to the point now where I've got profiles for every character. I know their height, their weight, their eye color, their habits, their interests, their family history,
Oh,
absolutely
wow.
everything. I've got like a storyboard with arcs and stuff. I mean, the story goes on I've got at least, say, 3 albums worth of like story content written. It's just getting the music done to coexist with it now. That's the difficult part for me.
That is incredible. Now, that actually leads into my next question, which I'm really interested in finding out. What comes first? Is it the characters? Is it the world building? Is it the music? Or is it kind of like a mixture in between, a little bit of everything?
So I guess in terms of what's most important to me, it will always be the music. In terms of creating the content, it depends really as to how far along in the project I am. So, for example, when I started writing this EP, I didn't have any of the story written. Once I'd finished, I released Shadow Task, and then I released 3 singles. And once I'd finished those, I basically hadn't written any more story. So I kind of just pulled together a bunch of inspiration, from different films and comics and different songs and stuff like that. I kind of just vibed with it and thought, right, okay, I'll get some chords together. I'll start writing some ideas down for the story and we'll just see where it goes. And I kind of build them both simultaneously.
Oh, wow.
Or at least I did during the progress of this EP, because sometimes the music might influence like a choice within the storyline. Sometimes the way the story is going might depict the choice in the music. Because they have to coexist and it has to make sense within context of one another. So, like when you're reading the story and listen to the music, you have to feel like it fits, almost like a soundtrack. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it really does. And a lot of the music that I listen to that has, let's say, comic book elements to it, some of it is really just, I'm going to write some songs and then I'm going to write a story and then just kind of mash them together and that's the story. But it feels like your music is a little bit more closely tied to the story. In fact, the lyrics, I was just listening to the lyrics to the new EP and the lyrics are just right on point with the story cues. And I was just really impressed with how you kind of tied everything from the music to the dramatic rhythms and the beats and everything like that to the lyrics to kind of fit everything that you're telling with the actual story.
Yeah, thank you. That's a huge compliment, because like I really try hard to sort of try and nail that, at least to the best of what I think it should be. So when other people kind of agree and enjoy it, that's really nice to hear.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And what I was really going to say earlier is just right from the beginning of the story. Now, perhaps I'm reading way too much into this, but it seems like when I'm listening to the story and I'm listening to the lyrics and everything like that, I find that a lot of the concepts, like the who is Pilot, why am I here, where am I going, who is Rico, to me it just feels like metaphors for just life itself. You know, you find yourself at a specific moment in time and you're like, well, gee, how did I get here? It's almost like a Talking Heads kind of song. Do you find that some of the stuff that you write, even though you're writing as the character, do you find that you kind of put a little bit of yourself in that particular story, or am I just kind of going crazy here?
No. I think that's spot on. I mean, in some cases, obviously, I'm just thinking of ideas and writing them with no real relevance to, say, my own experiences. But some of the stuff that I write about and some of my influences definitely come from like things that have happened in my life, or like the way I'm feeling or the way I've felt in the past about certain things. Definitely. I'm trying to think of a good example.
Because I'm just full of things in my head that I'm thinking of. Yep, that's me.
Yeah,
You know, why
yeah,
why
for
am I
sure.
here? What did I do? Why do I have this thing in my hand and in my pocket? Why are these people chasing me? Well, it's been a while since I've been chased by strangers, but
Yeah, I mean, I think like in terms of like lyrics and stuff like that. I mean, I try to just put myself in the position of like the characters. So I guess because I've been writing the story for so long and I'm so like deeply invested in the characters, and I know a lot that like the audience doesn't know yet about them. Just
right.
allows me to sort of, I guess, put myself in character and just think, right, how would they feel in this situation, or whatever, and it just helps me kind of write the music and the lyrics that way.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I mean, that's definitely the funnest part about it is just jumping in the character. And as the listener, you can kind of do the same thing. You jump in and
Yeah.
it's very immersive where you can just kind of
Mm.
slide into the storyline, and when you read it and you listen to the music, it just really takes you on that adventure that really should be a graphic novel. You got to get to work on that.
Well, it's funny you should say that because, well, yeah, I've been talking to a couple of people just
Oh,
yesterday. Um, it's something I could definitely want to do because the guy that does my artwork for me, Mikey Kovlev, his name is. He's an absolutely fantastic artist.
it's beautiful.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's stunning. It's really lovely. I've been wanting to kind of, especially with the story aspect, because now there's a lot of dialogue happening between the characters as the story is progressing. I feel like it can maybe, especially because of my writing style, I don't consider myself to be a very good writer at all. And I feel like it might be difficult for people sometimes to kind of fully grasp what's happening. I feel like having a graphic novel style, just to perhaps show like the dialogue between the different characters, would help, I guess, sell the story to them easier and make it easier for them to understand. Plus, I mean, it would look awesome at the same time.
It would
I
look
mean, that's why I
badass.
want to do it. Yeah, it would be absolutely amazing. Like, I would love to do that. So, yeah, I'm in talks with some people like at the minute to see if we can sort something out. So we'll just have to see what happens with that. But hopefully, we can get something together.
Kickstarter.
Yeah, why not? Kickstarter,
Well,
why
you could
not?
put that. I'm sure you could put that right on Fix Neon's store, and I'm sure
Mm,
you'll sell a lot of copies. How is it over there
yeah,
with Fix Neon? I know Kevin; he's an excellent, amazing guy, and I
yeah,
know
for
that
sure.
you just recently joined up with them on what, February 14th? Is that right?
Yes, yeah. I think that was the release date of the first single from the EP.
Great, great. How does it feel to kind of be with a new company and everything like that?
Yeah, it's great. The I was releasing independently before that. Well, the three songs prior to this EP were independent. Before that, I was releasing tracks through Monster Cat. It's been a really nice sort of transition because I feel like Monster Cat was good for my career and it was a good stepping stone. But I feel like synthwave, although it's a big niche, it's still a niche. And labels like Fixed and Fixed Neon, they understand that niche well. They have a fan base of people who love this kind of genre, and they have a lot of knowledge and they have a large network, and they're just great people to work with. They really understand my project, my vision, the ideas I have, and they're fully behind everything, which is one of the sort of the pivotal sort of factors for me when deciding what I should do, whether to release independently or with them. And they just seem so interested and invested in my ideas and sort of just bringing everything that I had in my head
they sound like they are a very good family. They sound like they got your back, and yeah, so far, I mean,
For
they've been
sure.
great. They're even sending me a couple T-shirts, which I cannot
Nice.
wait to wear.
Yeah, you need to take a selfie and tag me on Instagram or something.
Oh, when I
I'll
get
definitely
the
give it a like.
T-shirt, I'm gonna have it all over social media.
Yeah,
I'm a social
nice.
media junkie, but I do. I love products like that. That to me, it's either vinyl or a T-shirt, just something tangible. CDs anymore just aren't really a thing that I'm really down with anymore. But I'm sure there's
Yeah.
a lot of people that collect CDs, but it's kind of weird. CDs are just kind of like the antiquated thing, and everyone's going back
Mm.
to like tapes and vinyl, but
Yeah.
they love
Yeah.
the vintage, and they love that organic feel, especially when
Mm.
you're doing organic type of music, which I would say synthwave, even though it is an electronic music, it's just very based in organic groundwork, substance
Yeah.
and everything like that, which is what I think a lot of people really find interesting about it. It feels
Mm.
it feels nostalgic, it feels tangible, and
Yeah.
it feels really good and relaxed. In the community,
Mm.
I've never found another community my entire life before I found the synthwave community. It's the most craziest thing that I've ever seen. I mean, I've seen synthwave DJs where, they had a really bad disaster and, they lost their $1,000 controller, and
Mm.
the entire community just gets together and gets them a new controller
Yeah.
just because they're
Yeah.
tight like that. I'm just like, this is unbelievable.
Yeah, man.
Any other group of people will be like, screw you. you know?
Mm, yeah, that's one thing I can attest to is like all the community of like producers and fans and everyone. I mean, it's a really close knit sort of community of people. It's really great.
It is. I feel like they would walk over hot coals for somebody. And that just, to me,
Yeah.
is just,
Mm,
it's very important to me, because just having that community. Let's go back to the music again, because I want to kind of keep the focus on the music and just
for
the
sure.
cool stuff that you're doing. So you're basically you're doing the drum work, finger drumming.
Hmm.
We'll count that. The
Yeah,
programming and
yeah.
everything like that. I know
Mm,
you're shredding on the guitar. You do all the guitar work, which is really, really
hmm.
amazing. I'm assuming you do the vocals as well, with
Yeah.
a little help from those magical filters that make you sound so
Hmm.
cool. Is there any
Yeah.
other type of instrumentation that you kind of squeeze into the mix every now and then?
Yeah, so mainly my go-tos are drums, bass, guitar. Sometimes I might use like a live bass, or oftentimes I'll just layer a live bass with a synthesized bass. Just a lot of synths, to be honest, a lot of synths. So you'll often hear in my music like maybe like a drone in the background, some chords over the top of that, some melodies being sort of sprinkled around everywhere, maybe like a synth lead or something. I mean,
Right.
if you looked at my projects, I mean, I've got like 80 channels in some of them. And although the music might sound quite simple or doesn't sound like it's got many layers, it's often because many things are like, doubled up, or there'll be, the same pattern will be played, but there'll be two different sounds merged together or something.
Right.
Um,
It sounds
yeah.
clean. It
But yeah,
sounds
man.
very clean.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
It just seems like it all fits, and it doesn't sound like anything's like overused or anything like that.
Mm,
When you kick the drum and the drums, the way they come in, it just sounds really nice and polished. So yeah.
great.
Speaking of instruments, what is the instrument, let's say, that would be your go-to instrument, the one that you have the most fun playing?
Well, I have the most fun playing. It'd probably be. I actually really enjoy playing like monophonic synthesizers. So, like playing bass lines on the synthesizer. So, I got a couple of like hardware to my studio. One of them is a Moog Little Fatty. Um,
Oh, wow.
I think it's yeah,
Nice.
I think it's a stage two or something. But basically, that is absolutely awesome for like playing bass lines on. Like I could just jam to a 4-bar loop all day, just playing just playing bass lines. That's kind of like the crux of my music. Really, is having that sort of deep chorus kind of bass sound, whether it's arpeggiated or not. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, I could jam that stuff for days. So I'd definitely say that.
Yeah, bass is really, really where it's at when it comes to just getting that hard driving, pounding type of
Mm.
sound that your music does produce.
Yeah, I think like with synthwave in general, it's like, and 80s music in particular, you usually have like a synthesized bass line or something. It might be arpeggiated. The bass note would stay the same, and you would just change the chords over the top of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like without that, without having the sort of bass line underneath driving those chords along, that's sort of half of the essence of the genre straight out the window. So yeah, it's like a massive part of synthwave, really. So I think that's why I enjoy it so much, because it can completely change like the whole feel of a song just by changing the bass line.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right with that. Now, as far as touring, let's go into that subject, because I know a lot of the listeners are very interested in finding that out. Do you have any plans, anything on the horizon, or are you just kind of, working on getting the albums together first, or what? Do you have any type of plans to possibly get out there and start shredding in front of a live audience anytime soon?
Yeah, I mean, the gigging is something I would love to do. It's for me, it's literally just a case of making sure that the conditions are right. So, I'm not really. I've DJ'd many times in the past. Not as PYLOT, but just in other projects and stuff. It's not something really that, I mean, I enjoyed it, but it's just too boring for me. Like, it's too boring coming from like a live sort of music background. No discredit to anyone that does do it. It takes talent and skill, but
Right.
it just didn't. I didn't enjoy it. I'd much rather sort of be playing an instrument, playing a synthesizer, or just doing more things to sort of kind of make music on the fly. Or the difficult thing really with sort of trying to recreate this style of music live is to get the same kind of production quality.
Right.
Because if you're on a studio, you can write, mix and master, and it's all said and done. But if you're playing it live, there's certain elements that just can't be reproduced.
Right. Either that, or you're just kind of pressing play,
Yes,
and saying, "Okay, here I
exactly.
am."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I would much rather actually, intricately be involved in, like if I stop pressing something, the music stops. You know what I mean? I want it to be very involved. And so
Right.
that just takes time to plan, really. And logistically, you have to think, what is it I need? How can I do this? And I also want it to be badass as well. Like, because I haven't played a show as PYLOT before. And so I just want to make sure that I can sort something out that's really good.
Right.
I feel like the brand and the character and everything deserves to have something good. So it's definitely not something I'm planning on doing anytime soon, but it is something that, I am heavily looking into. So we'll just have to wait and see what the future holds, I guess.
Oh, that's a very honest and reasonable answer. And too many people seem like they want to just go out there and start playing, where they might not figure out the logistics, and it's not exactly the best way to do it. You want to make sure that you line your ducks up in a row before you go out on the show, and make sure that you have a good polished stage show. Of course.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
I know it's late over there, and I do apologize. You did have your AMA. How was your AMA? Did you have a good experience with that? I just kind of briefly logged in a few times. Looked like we had a ton of questions and answers, and it looked really cool. A lot of stuff that I didn't even know I kind of already got answered with the AMA.
Yeah, it was really cool. It's the first time I've done anything like that with PYLOT, so it was really cool. Some people were asking like 5, 6, 7 questions, which is fine. I happily answered them. But it's just funny, really, like the sort of mix of questions you get. People asking all kind of things like, what's your favorite kind of bike?
Right. Your favorite type of food,
what food
which
do
is
you eat?
apparently pizza. So yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's nice. It's nice to kind of, interact with people like that and just kind of just talk to them normally. Because I get quite a lot of DMs and stuff like that, and it's not possible to sort of reply to them all.
Right.
So it's nice to do things like that, because it means I just get a chance to kind of chat with people.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, like I have like a Discord server that, my fans can join or whatever. And I often pop in there when I can and just kind of show my face and sort of try and join the conversation when I can and stuff.
Yeah. I'm sure you're busy too.
Yeah.
You're writing awesome kick-ass music.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I am rather busy, but, without the fans, it's, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. So of course, like I owe everything to them. So I really don't mind, chatting to them and stuff when I can.
Yeah, and I'm sure they really do appreciate it, and I do appreciate the time that you spent with me. One last question for you before we go ahead and wrap it up, and
Okay.
really, I just want to know what's next. What's on the horizon? You just put out your EP. I know you got
Mm.
some things coming up. Where are you going to go from here?
Oh man, there's so much. There's so many ideas I have, and it's really exciting because I'm kind of in a position where I've got a big network now of talented sort of creators that can do stuff that I can't do, like illustrators, designers, videographers. The world is my oyster, which is a really nice feeling.
Hmm.
So I've been talking to a few people. You know, I said earlier I've been talking to someone who might be able to do some sort of graphic novel kind of thing. That would be really cool.
That'll be awesome.
Videographers, yeah, a music video sometime this year would be great. Maybe for a single after the EP or something. I'm not too sure yet, but I've definitely got loads of stuff in the works. You know, lots of things sort of planned and that I'm testing out. And whenever something feels right, I'm just going to shoot with it. And
Stay tuned, right?
stay tuned. I mean, yeah, there's so much going on. Nothing solidified yet, but
Yeah.
trust me, there's so much going on behind the scenes. I'm eager to sort of get new music and stuff out there. Even though my EP only came out literally today,
Right.
you know,
I got
I'm
so
eager
much
to
more
sort of keep it going.
stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Keep it going, and I'm sure the fans will definitely be ready for your music when it does get ready to come along again. But right now, in the meantime, they have a wonderful EP to just chew on and enjoy. A good immersive story that's online. And what is the website that they can go to if they would like to get immersed in the story part?
So you can go to it's www.iampilot.com.
There you go, with a Y.
Yes, with a Y. I am pilot with a Y.com. Yeah. And if you click on this, it's called a journal tab. You click on the journal tab, and then all my music, all the story is there in chronological order. And you can just, you know, click on one page, skip to the next page, skip to the next one. The music will play, and you can just immerse yourself in it.
That is very, very good to know and very exciting. And I will definitely spread the word to let everyone know who is PYLOT. Make sure you check it out. And I do thank you for the interview and the AMA. Really can't wait to hear some more stuff. But in the meantime, I am going to enjoy this EP. And yeah, that's about it. I again thank you for staying up. I know it's again late over there in your dystopia, but
Yeah, well, thank you very much for the opportunity. It was great to talk to you and to sort of have a chat. So yeah, thank you.
all right. With that, we'll talk to you soon, and we'll be listening.